Welcome to today's reading from Ramayana, the story of Lord Sri Ram, compiled by His Holiness Bhaktivikas Swami. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate giri. Yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurun Dintarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. So yesterday we left when the milk ocean was being churned and Lord Vishnu appeared in the form of Dhanvantari as the inaugurator of the medical science. Now we will continue from there onwards. A great fight ensued between the demigods and the demons over the nectar. When both sides neared destruction, the demons took possession of the nectar. Lord Vishnu then assumed the form of Mohini Murti. When this extraordinarily beautiful form of the Lord as a young woman appeared before them, the demons immediately became captivated by her, because the demons were then fighting among themselves to possess the nectar. They selected this beautiful woman to settle their quarrel, taking advantage of their weakness. Mohini, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, enticed the demons to promise so that Indra could continue ruling over the three worlds without fear. Indra, however, remained wary. Sometime later, Diti became very tired and carelessly laid down, placing her head where her feet normally would rest. In this way, Diti neglectfully allowed her hair to become contaminated. Taking advantage of this fault, Indra utilized his mystic power to enter her womb. Indra then cut Diti's embryo into 7 parts. When the fetus cried out in a shrill voice, he again cut each part into 7, making a total of 49 pieces. Diti, however, could understand what was happening and begged Indra to stop killing her child. Having been discovered, the repentant Indra came out of her womb and begged forgiveness from his stepmother. Thus, Diti requested that her 49 children be allowed to become wind gods. Indra agreed, and thus he and Diti were reconciled, while the 49 children became recognized as demigods known as the Maruts. Vishwamitra concluded this city Vishala is situated at the place where Diti formerly performed her austerities. Later, the son of Ikshvaku named Vishala built the city, and present king in his dynasty is Sumati. Maharaj Sumati then came out of the city to receive and worship Vishwamitra. At his invitation, the party rested there for the night. The next morning, the caravan again proceeded on its journey towards the kingdom of Videha. Upon reaching the outskirts of Mithila, the capital city of Maharaj Janak, Lord Ram saw an old desolate hermitage. After Ram inquired about it from Vishwamitra, the Rishi explained, "This ashram formerly belonged to Gautam Rishi, who practiced austerities here along with his wife Ahalya. Once upon a time, knowing that Gautam was away from his ashram, King Indra assumed a form that closely resembled that the Rishi. He went to the ashram in that disguise and approached Gautam's wife, saying, 'My dear beautiful one, I desire union with you immediately. Please do not disappoint me.' Although Ahalya recognized that it was Indra disguised as Gautam, she did not refuse him, for she too eagerly desired his embraces. Thus the union took place, and after their lusty urges had been gratified, Ahalya begged, 'O Indra, please protect us from the wrath of my husband Gautam.' Indra assured Ahalya that he would depart immediately unnoticed by anyone. However, while Indra was sneaking away from Gautam's ashram, the Rishi suddenly returned. When Gautam saw Indra disguised as himself, his head hanging down in shame, he could well understand the nature of his misconduct. Thus, with great anger, the Rishi cursed Indra, 'O lusty fool, may your testicles immediately fall off as punishment for this abominable act.' No sooner had the curse been pronounced when Indra's testicles fell from his ashram. 'Gautam, now on you shall be incapable of eating or drinking, and you will have to lie down on the bed of ashes.' Thus Ahalya was turned into a pillar of stone. Gautam then said, 'Only when Lord Ram visits this spot, in the distant future you will be absolved of your sin. Freed from all lusty desires and reunited with me as your husband. Saying this, Gautam departed for the Himalayas. Meanwhile, Indra informed the demigods, I have successfully thwarted Gautam Rishi's attempt to attain my position as king of heaven by making him angry. However, in the process, I have lost my testicles now. Somehow or other, please arrange for my manhood to be restored. Responding to Indra's pleas, the demigods arranged the Pitas to castrate a ram and grafted its testicles onto Indra's body. After narrating this story, Vishwamitra invited Lord Ram to enter the ashram of Gautam. As soon as Ram entered the hermitage, Ahalya regained her original form, dazzling with ascetic splendor. Indeed, upon Ahalya's liberation, there was a sudden shower of celestial flowers, with drums beating in the heavens. Ram and Lakshman respectfully touched Ahalya's feet, and she reciprocally welcomed the two brothers and Vishwamitra. Gautam Rishi then came to be reunited with his wife and worshipped Lord Ram and Lakshman with great reverence. Thereafter, the caravan entered Mithila. Upon arriving at the sacrificial arena of King Janak, Lord Ram was pleased to see that thousands of Brahmanas had assembled from all parts of the world, hearing of Vishwamitra's arrival. Maharaj Janak hurriedly went to greet him and addressed him, saying, O best of saintly persons, this sacrifice will take 12 days to complete, with the demigods appearing personally to accept their shares of the offerings. My dear sir, please tell me who these two exalted personalities are that have accompanied you. Indeed, they appear to be like gods in human form. Vishwamitra replied, These two young men are Ram and Lakshman, the sons of King Dashrath. They have come here to examine the great bow that you have been worshipping. I brought them from Ayodhya to my ashram to kill the Rakshasas that were disturbing my sacrifice. On the way, they killed the she-demon Taraka, and then at the Siddhashram, Ram hurled Marich 100 yojans into the sea and killed Subahu. Before arriving at Mithila, Ram freed Ahalya from her husband's curse and received the worship of Gautam Rishi. So Vishwamitra Muni has narrated to King Janak the achievements Lord Ram has already shown while traveling with Vishwamitra Muni. Later, when everyone was comfortably seated, Satananda, the chief priest of Maharaj Janak and eldest son of Gautam Rishi, requested Vishwamitra to recount in detail the story of how his mother had regained her original form at the sight of Lord Ram. The Rishi then happily related the entire incident. Thereafter, Satananda reciprocated by narrating the glorious history of Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was born as the son of Gadhi and formerly ruled his kingdom as a righteous Kshatriya. Once taking an Akshahuni of soldiers with him, Vishwamitra began to travel over the earth. In due course, he came upon the hermitage of great Brahma Rishi Vasishtha. Entering the beautiful hermitage, which was inhabited by many sages, he bowed respectfully before Vasishtha. The Rishi received Vishwamitra cordially, and the two became engaged in friendly conversation. Vasishtha said, My dear king, please remain here for a few days as my guest so that I may entertain you in a manner befitting your position. Vishwamitra humbly replied, I am already fully satisfied with your kind reception. I ask only for your permission to leave. Vasishtha, however, repeatedly insisted that Vishwamitra and his men remain. Finally, Vishwamitra relented. This being settled, Vasishtha brought the Kamadhenu cow named Savala before Vishwamitra and ordered her to produce a sumptuous royal feast. Being so commanded, the celestial cow immediately brought forth a huge quantity of seemingly unlimited varieties of food and drink, all ranged on sparkling silver platters. Vishwamitra and his men then feasted to their full satisfaction. However, before long, Vishwamitra began to feel envious of Vasishtha, wishing he had the celestial cow for himself. As the pangs of greed surfaced, Vishwamitra told Vasishtha, I must have this wonderful cow of yours at all costs. Please give her to me and I will reward you appropriately. Vishwamitra offered the sage hundreds of thousands of cows, gold, unlimited jewels, and more. Regardless, Vashishta refused to give up his celestial cow, saying, "I am very sorry, but I shall never be able to part with this Kamdhenu, even in exchange for 1 billion cows. This wish-fulfilling cow is inseparable for me, for I need her to supply all the ingredients for my sacrificial performances." Vishwamitra then replied, "This cow should rightfully belong to me, for the king is meant to possess the very best of everything." Because Vashishta's refusal only fanned the flames of Vishwamitra's desire, the king proceeded to offer the sage more and more. Regardless, Vashishta refused to part with his cow. Finally, out of frustration and anger, Vishwamitra grabbed the cow and began dragging her out of the ashram. At this, the Kamdhenu cried out pitifully, imploring Vashishta, "O Rishi, you are allowing me to be taken away like this, although I have served you faithfully. Are you now going to desert me?" Sabala freed herself from hundreds of men, assisting the Vishwamitra in dragging her away. As she fled back to the ashram, Vashishta replied, "O Sabala, I am certainly not abandoning you. However, my power is not equal to the king's. I am helpless to rescue you." Sabala replied, "Dear Rishi, the king's material strength is insignificant in comparison to your spiritual strength. If you allow me to do so, I will utilize your superior energy to vanquish Vishwamitra's army myself." When Vashishta gave his consent, Sabala proceeded to create innumerable fierce warriors from a body that began to consume Vishwamitra's army. However, the powerful king destroyed them all. Moreover, his Kshatriya spirit bristling, he challenged Sabala to create more soldiers if she desired to continue fighting. Sabala then proceeded to produce more fiercer warriors that sprang from her udders, genitals, anus, and other body parts. These superior soldiers completely vanquished Vishwamitra's army. Seeing this, Vishwamitra's 100 sons angrily rushed at Vashishta, but the Brahmrishi reduced them to a mere pile of ashes simply by uttering a mere mighty roar. Having thus lost not only his entire army but his sons as well, Vishwamitra departed pale and dejected. Vishwamitra ordered his only remaining son to rule the kingdom and retired to the forest to perform austerities, hoping to please Lord Shiva. After some time, Lord Shiva became satisfied with Vishwamitra's austerities and appeared before the king to reward him. The delighted Vishwamitra expressed a desire to possess the knowledge of all celestial weapons. Lord Shiva, known as Ashutosh, because he is easily pleased, awarded Vishwamitra his desired benediction. Thus Vishwamitra, who was already too proud, became exceedingly puffed up after receiving the celestial weapons, thinking his prowess to be invincible. Vishwamitra went directly to the ashram of Vashishta and began showering down his weapons so fiercely that it appeared the ashram was on the verge of annihilation. All the sages residing there began to flee in terror despite Vashishta's assurances. Indeed, in a short time, the area appeared desolate. Picking up his Brahminical rod, Vashishta addressed Vishwamitra as follows: "Because of your rash act of aggression, I shall now cut down your false pride and show you the futility of your so-called prowess." Vashishta held out his Brahminical rod and neutralized all of the Vishwamitra's weapons. Vishwamitra then resorted to hurling his remaining celestial weapons. When this too failed, he prepared to release the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra. From above, the demigods witnessed the spectacular duel. When Vishwamitra invoked the terrible Brahmastra, they became wonderstruck and fearful. However, after Vishwamitra released the Brahmastra, Vashishta countered it by assuming an awesome form of gigantic proportions, with flames blazing forth from every pore of his body, neutralizing the energy of the Brahmastra. The tremendous form exhibited by Vashishta stunned everyone who witnessed it. Indeed, after seeing the Rishi's great prowess, the sages began to offer Vashishta prayer. With the Brahmastra weapon countered, Vashishta again assumed his normal form. In the meantime, Vishwamitra desisted from the battle and departed, condemning the meager powers of the Kshatriyas. Understanding Brahminical power to be superior, Vishwamitra became determined to become Brahmrishi like Vashishta. He then went into the seclusion with his wife and began to execute severe penances. After 1,000 years, Lord Brahma appeared before Vishwamitra and formally conferred upon him the status of Rajrishi as a reward. However, as Lord Brahma departed, Vishwamitra hung his head in shame over the meagerness of his achievement, remaining determined to achieve the status of Brahmrishi and nothing less. So, Vishwamitra only got the status of Rajrishi from Lord Brahma, but he is ultimately expecting the status of Brahmarishi similar to Vashisht. During this time, there was a king in the line of Ikshvaku named Trishanku who ruled out from his capital, Ayodhya, desiring to perform a sacrifice that would enable him to ascend to heaven in his human body without changing bodies. So we can see that in the previous yuga, this is the story from the Treta Yuga, what kind of austerities were performed for in return for such big benedictions, which are completely unthinkable for all of us. He requested Vashisht to become his priest. Vashisht, however, refused, claiming it would be impossible to perform such a sacrifice. Afterward, Trishanku approached Vashishta's 100 sons who were engaged in performing sacrifices and asked them to assist him in the performance of this sacrifice. However, when they learned of their father's refusal, they angrily chastised him for attempting to solicit their help after being turned down by his gurus. Hearing their criticism, Trishanku replied, "If you are not willing to help me, I will seek the assistance of other more magnanimous." Upon hearing Trishanku's impudent statement, the rishis became furious and cursed Trishanku to become a Chandal. So he was cursed to become a Chandal by the rishis, Trishanku. Soon thereafter, Trishanku's golden complexion turned black, his garments became old and soiled, his long lustrous hair began to fall, his cosmetics turned into ashes, his gold ornaments turned to iron, and his garland transformed into flowers from crematorium. When Trishanku's ministers witnessed this transformation, they immediately abandoned him as untouchable, having become a Chandal. Bereft of his formal position, Trishanku went to see Vishwamitra, who was engaged in performing austerities. Vishwamitra welcomed Trishanku with compassion, hearing from him how he had been cursed by the sons of Vashisht. When Trishanku begged Vishwamitra for help, the rishi assured him of shelter and promised to provide him with the priests that would assist him in the performance of his sacrifice. Thereafter, Vishwamitra ordered his sons to petition all the priests and qualified Brahmins to assist him, asking also for the names of those who refused. Thus many Brahmins from kingdoms across the earth came to his ashram. Only Vashisht and his sons and the rishi Mahadaya refused to participate, saying, "What Brahman or demigod would be willing to accept an offering from the hands of a Kshatriya, what to speak of Chandal?" When Vishwamitra heard these harsh and insulting words, he immediately uttered the following curse: "May the wretched son of Vashisht be reduced to ashes and sent to the abode of Yamraj this very day." Thereafter he let them take 700 births as Chandals, and may that fool Mahadev become a Nishad. The curses quickly took effect, and Vishwamitra was able to perceive the results by dint of his mystic vision. Vishwamitra then requested the Brahmins present to perform Trishanku's sacrifice. Simply out of fear of being cursed, they complied and started the sacrifice. When Vishwamitra invited the demigods to attend and accept their share of the offerings, they desisted. This made Vishwamitra very angry, and he declared to Trishanku that he would elevate him to heaven by his own prowess. Indeed, as soon as Vishwamitra made this vow, Trishanku began rising to the heaven in his self-same body. When King Indra saw Trishanku approaching heaven without having earned sufficient pious merit, and after having disobeyed his guru Vashisht, Indra forced Trishanku to fall headfirst back toward earth. While thus falling, Trishanku called out helplessly to Vishwamitra to rescue him. Vishwamitra not only stopped Trishanku's fall, but also created a replica planetary system complete with imitation demigods for Trishanku to reside in. The demigods, however, were outraged by this wonderful feat. Approaching Vishwamitra, they said, "Give up your efforts to help Trishanku. He lacks the necessary qualification for residing in the heavenly planets." Vishwamitra, however, insisted on keeping his promise. He declared, "I will never go back on my promise to send Trishanku to the heavenly planets without change of body. Therefore, let it be ordained that my newly created heaven be accepted by you and remain for the duration of the universe." In the end, the demigods relented, and thus Trishanku remained head downwards in the space. By the mercy of Vishwamitra, he enjoys heavenly bliss while shining brightly among the stars. So we will continue our reading from Ramayana tomorrow, from here onwards. And we have seen a kind of materialistic rivalry which we see in the Kali Yuga going on between Vashisht and Vishwamitra, because Vishwamitra wanted the status of Brahm Rishi, and he is ready to do all kinds of things to prove himself. And amazing that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, allows all kinds of leelas to take place in different yugas, because each leela has got a deeper meaning behind it, which we only find is revealed at the end of that particular leela. So looking forward to see the conclusion of this rivalry between the two sages, both great in their own merit. And I wish you all a very happy Saptami. Today is the 7th day of the Durga Navratri. Tomorrow is Ashtami and Navami together. I was told that Navami starts, I think, half day after Ashtami in India, and settings could be quite similar in this country as well. And Sunday, it is the Shera. And I hope you are watching some Ramayana which is being telecast from live from Ayodhya, on and off. Well, I try to watch it. Parts of it are engaging, parts of it are okay. Maybe because we are very much familiar with the Ramayana since our childhood, and we expect more and more drama, or we expect the levels of the Ramayana to be always raised, the bar always raised if we are watching a new production of Ramayana. So thanks for joining, and wish you a very happy day ahead. Hare Krishna. Hari Om Tat Sat.